When Tom asked me to give this sermon, I had just sent off my DNA to Ancestry.com to find out my ethnic and racial background. Both my brother and I were dumbfounded with the results. Now, we knew much of our family makeup in race. We're not very different from other African American families. We figured we're about 1/2 African and some European and Native, probably for us a quarter each of European and Native American. But we were dumbfounded with the proportions. Our white ancestry was almost 2 times what we thought, and only 10% less than the African bits in our blood. And my brother has still refused to accept that. Indeed, the largest single racial or ethnic group in my family is, where are you, bud? Scandinavian. You gotta teach me some stuff, man. How do you say man in Swedish, you know? Yep. I have Swedish, Norway, and Denmark in my blood. The second largest was from Cameroon and Congo, but not as large, anywhere as large as Scandinavian. Another surprise was that our family has Arab blood in us, people from the Iberian Peninsula, and Tom, I'm 7% Irish. My brother still refuses to accept it. He said, I am black, I am African American, and everyone who sees me knows it and deals with me just as that. He said, what does it matter that we have so many races? Because white people in America who are mixed with English and Scotch and French and German and Dutch and Italian, whatever group in Europe, that's fine, but, he said, 1 drop of blood that's black defines you only as that. As the psalm said, you have made us the derision of our neighbors, and our enemies laugh us to scorn. Race was and continues to be a defining issue in the United States. There's a litany of court cases and laws in this land, but also not just about black people and slavery. We annexed the southwest part of this country, making Indians and Hispanic who've been living there from millennia, making them aliens in their own ancestral lands. As they say in the Southwest, we didn't cross the border crossed us. We have denied until late into the 20th century citizenship to Chinese immigrants, to Native Americans. During World War II, we had internment camps for Japanese Americans. Funny thing is, we didn't have those for German Americans in either World War. In the first 354 years of European settlement in America, race is and was the cornerstone of this republic, and it has infected the Episcopal Church. Yet there have been remarkable strides that have been made. This January 1st, 2013 began with the commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. Though it did not free many because it was limited only to the Confederacy and could not be enforced, still it was an anniversary of hope being brought to God's people, to hold on to faith and to know that God created us equal. This year in April was the 50th anniversary of the letter from the Birmingham jail, written by Martin Luther King. August was the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, which relived that rhetoric of Martin Luther King, saying when it comes to justice and equality, the check that the United States has written to people of color came back marked insufficient funds. And at that commemoration, at that march, a black man was president of the United States, and again raised the clarion call of hope, justice, and equality. But also that same month, The Supreme Court struck down the process of guaranteeing equal access and rights in voting in this country, quickly using a rationalization they did for making sure that only qualified voters can exercise this franchise. It was a thin veil of the base element of racism that has infected us. Texas led the charge immediately. The next day, they turned back the clock on voters' rights. And this week on NPR, there's a report of how the abuses of denying voting is disproportionate to people of color. We know what that law was about. I have thought, and I've heard others say, that since Barack Obama was elected, racism in the United States is more visible. I want to say that again. Since we elected a black man, Barack Obama, racism is more visible in this country. You've seen the signs. We want our country back, which means we want whites back in control. You have made us the derision of our neighbors. This summer, when I was recovering from my cancer surgery, I was on Cape Cod staying with Victoria and Marshall Hunt. They live in East Harwich, a white, comfortable neighborhood. After a few days, I decided I wanted to walk my dog. Now, Marshall, being Marshall, the gentleman that he is, said, "Oh, no, I'll go with you." And I had to really say to him, "I am the bishop. I will take this dog myself." Isn't that right, Marshall? I had to show him the ring and everything. So I took Piccola out. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was walking very slow. I had to have a cane in one hand and Piccola on a leash in the other. And I walked in front of his house and turned left and crossed the street. And as I did this, a car slowed, crossed over to the wrong side of the street, shadowing me, as it were, stalking me. The car pulled across my path, a nice, white, brand new Cadillac DeVille. And the window came slowly down. And the driver, a white man, glowered at me. He looked me up and down. He stared with a sense of privilege. He was judging me, and he was seeking to intimidate me. He said to me, "Do you work around here?" Now, I gave him back the black woman's look. I turned full body and said, "No." He said, "Well, I've seen you walking with some other people around here. You must be one of their nurses or something. You work here. What are you doing here?" I just stared at him. He was ready, I could see, to get out of the car. He was reaching for the handle, but the passenger said something to him. He glowered at me again and went on. This happened here in Massachusetts in 2013 with a black man, DeVal Patrick, as our governor. But exactly 7 days to that day later, in Florida, George Zimmerman, who stalked somebody else who was out of place, was acquitted of murder of Trayvon Martin, who was shot for being guilty while being black in America. 2 generations ago, a movement was forged, and yet I still go to churches every week, as you know, and I look out and I see in our churches that Sunday morning is still the most segregated time in America. Martin Luther King said it in the 50s. It's true still. One church I was visiting, as I was driving there, not really knowing the area, I saw for probably almost the last whole mile signs in Spanish, businesses, stores. They were all in Spanish. And then the last 2 blocks, they turned back to English. And so after church, and seeing that there were no people of Latina or Latino heritage, I asked the vestry, what is your outreach to this community, to the people who are Spanish-speaking in your neighborhood, the immigrants who are nearby, who have made this their home? And I was told, oh, they're not in our neighborhood. They're not our neighbors. I questioned them again, well, why not reach out to that community? You have become so small, less than 40 people on Sunday morning. Why don't you reach out to that community? And after some hemming and hawing, they said, well, you know, Spanish-speaking people are all Roman Catholic. At the end of the vestry meeting, I heard a loud commotion as people were coming in, and I opened the door from the vestry room and saw about 100 Hispanic people, Spanish-speaking Latinas and Latinos, going downstairs. I asked the vestry, who are they? Oh, that's a congregation. We rent out to them some space so they can have their worship service. Oh, are they Roman Catholic? Well, no. Have you thought of having a joint service or a picnic or doing something with them? Oh, no. They have that loud electric music and drums and what have you. Not very Anglican. I see and hear this too often in our churches, in our Episcopal churches. Well, you know, all Hispanics are Catholic. All Asians are Buddhist. Blacks are Baptists. So what am I doing here? What is Connie Eng, our canon for Asian ministries, and here at the Cathedral doing our Chinese ministry? What is she doing here? What is Emma Rosera, who is here serving as our deacon? What is she doing here? Or Lisa Fortuna? Or Mother Ana Clara, a Filipino. What is she doing here? Or my new son, Jordan Nim, who read the epistle, who is a Cambodian American. What is he doing here? Or Raphael, why are you here? We're here to serve God who created us all. I am proud to be a member of this diocese. This diocese was led by the Holy Spirit to elect John Burgess as the first Black diocesan bishop in the Episcopal Church. I am not only thankful, but I am blessed that Barbara Harris was elected the first woman bishop in the entire Anglican world. But in the 228 years of this diocese, I ask you, do I need all the fingers of one hand to count the number of people of color who have been called rectors of parishes in this diocese? And I do mean in predominantly white churches. Or we can be called to communities of color, but can we be called to your parish? Or be treasurers, because we know money is power. Indeed, I've been told by a senior member of our staff that the reason I was elected is because I'm Black. That's an indictment, if true, of this diocese, but it's a true fact of how we see each other. I was recently at a gathering of Black clergy of the Episcopal Church, and Bishop Eugene Sutton, a Black man, said, "When it comes to racism, we are losing the mission of the gospel in this atmosphere. The issue of sex and sexuality has taken over the issue of race, and the issue of race has taken the back seat. again. 2 generations have passed since the marches, the sit-ins, the boycotts of the 1960s. They were the tactics of that day. But the same alloy of racism is intertwined among us all in this post-political correctness society. You're not supposed to say racism, and if you're a person of color, you're playing the race card, even when you smell it, taste it, see it, and feel it. In this post-political correctness society, racism is something no one wants to be accused of or to be called, not even bigoted. But too often racism is perpetuated by the silence of the majority of the people of this country. These days require a different response. To address the subtle and now overt racial prejudices that we all are affected by, Black, brown, white, Native, Asian, we are all affected. We are children of racism in this country, all of us. It keeps us from seeing God present, and it keeps down the talent and the resources that we need in this country. We need to be upstanding and speaking out against the 21st century reactionaries who are using race baiting, not just to appeal to whites, but to keep different groups of color from forming coalitions. They keep us fighting over crumbs or for a piece of the American dream pie. I think we need to go in and make the bakery a cooperative. And this is the role of the church. The church, again, must be the place of rallying this society to equality and justice, of us joining together and not having the most segregated hour a week when we're at worship. The Black, brown, white, affluent, poor, young, old, Native, immigrant, GLTB, straight, all of us need to take over the bakery because there's enough for us all. It's not what you might lose in dealing with racism, but what we all can join together if we defeat it. The day after this incident occurred in East Harwich, Victoria's and Marshall's neighbor across the street, who I've come to know quite well, Preston, a retired dentist, a white man, came over and asked me, he said, "Gayle, you know, that man lives next door to me, and he's just a jerk. But he can't get away with just saying that and making those assumptions. I know if I'd go and try to talk to him, it would be to no avail. So I would like to do this. Knowing that you're a bishop, and in the Anglican Communion, which is international, knowing you've been to Lambeth and you've had tea at Buckingham Palace, I would like to go over to him and say, I heard you met my good friend Gayle Harris. You know, she's known internationally. She's had tea with Queen Elizabeth. She knows the vow. I mean, isn't she just wonderful? I said, go do that, Preston. God bless you. We all need to stand up for each other, like Preston did, sometimes using humor, sometimes just speaking truth with love. There is yet more to be done and more to strive for in this 21st century. It did not die in the 60s, the civil rights that we all need to have equal access to. Martin Luther King said in his letter from a Birmingham jail, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied to a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. The world has changed, for better and at times for worse. Our neighborhoods are changing, and our church must change with our neighborhoods. We must change and intentionally reach out, embracing all of God's children of different languages and colors. We are living in a new reality, and we, as the people of God, can find that when we embrace that new reality, we are embracing God. Jamie, the video. That new American reality is true, and it's not just for Latinos. Black people have been living that since we first came to these shores. Native Americans, Asian Americans, we all live that reality. And it is our diocesan reality, and it must be your parish's reality. Martin Luther King said, "Human progress never rolls on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of people to be co-workers with God. That the time is always ripe to do right. If today's church does not recapture the sacrificial spirit of the early church, it will lose its authenticity, forfeit the loyalty of millions, and be dismissed as an irrelevant social club with no meaning." He said, "I must turn my faith to the inner spiritual church, the church within the church as the true ecclesia and the hope of the world. So the next step is up to you and to me. The presiding bishop has invited us, the whole of the Episcopal Church, to join in a free 2-day webcast on November 15th and 16th. It is called 50 Years Later, the State of Racism in America. Why does it persist? Where is there hope for change? And will be co-moderated with PBS's Ray Suarez. From our own Diocese of Massachusetts, the Honorable Byron Rushing will be one of the panelists, and the Reverend Dr. James Codera from our church in Hudson will be also a part of the panel. My brothers and sisters, it is past time. So join in this webcast. Talk, speak up, stand up, be a Preston. Restore us, God. Let your face shine that we may be saved from ourselves and our bigotry. Restore us, O God. Let your face shine that we may be saved.